God had it written in the book of human history, so we can be at ease because He's still seated on His throne, and we can trust in His plan.
Well, welcome to Lions Awaken show. We have Daniel Emanuel with us again today, a good friend and coworker, and we're going to talk about the Ukraine and Russia crisis and give a young man's perspective on that whole situation. So I'm sure you guys have heard a lot of perspectives. I know I have heard so many different perspectives on what's going on from a conservative side, from a liberal side, and so we're just going to give our perspective on it today. So, Caleb,
all right,
what do you think about the Russia-Ukraine situation?
Well, obviously, it's unfortunate what happened. No one really wants war or wants to see what's happening in Ukraine. People have died. People have been injured. So it is really unfortunate. It's really sad. However, Putin, I believe, is doing what any rational leader would do in his situation. We know that he gave conditions to NATO and the U.S. for rejecting Ukrainian membership, and they didn't agree to that. And so what he did, he's like, okay, if you don't agree, then I'm just going to invade Ukraine and take it over because, for those who don't know, if Ukraine could get membership into NATO, then that means NATO can set up military bases on Russia's border. And that's a security threat for Russia, for Putin. So that's what I believe is the major reason why he did it. I'm sure there's many other underlying factors. A lot of people, like conservative people, have said, other things, but that's what I think. I think he did what anyone would have done. If the U.S. was in Putin's shoes, I think Biden would have done the same thing, or Trump, or whatever.
The U.S. was in Putin's shoes when the missile crisis in Cuba.
1963, I think.
Exactly.
Cuban Missile Crisis.
When that happened, the U.S. basically did the same or did similar.
It was actually less severe because it wasn't a land border.
Yeah.
So.
But it was an issue. It was a great issue with a lot of tension because the U.S. didn't want Russian missiles and military near their border. So it was basically like...
And Cuba's not even on our border, is it?
No, it's not.
Right.
That's what I mean. Like,
so
it's
it was
less... It's more reasonable what Putin did with Ukraine now than it was, what America did with Cuba. It's more reasonable what Putin did.
Because we basically said if Russia comes and sets up missiles in Cuba, we're going to use force against you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Nicholas Papanikolaou, you did the interview with him on Morningstar Journal News, which I highly encourage the viewers to watch that. It gives a very interesting perspective from Nicholas is a man of many great wonders, but I guess he's like a citizenship, or he comes at it from a Ukrainian, Russian, and American point of view. But he said that we were literally making sure if we saw a Russian plane in the sky, we said, you get out of here, we'll blow you down, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So continue with your story.
Yeah, so I believe that what Russia is doing, it's pretty rational, like Caleb said. But I also believe there's factors that took the conflict up to this point. For example, something that several conservative voices have said is how the Biden administration castrated, basically, or crushed the energy industry in America, which gave power to Putin. And now many nations in Europe depend on Putin to provide their gas and oil. Mm-hmm. So I think he buried the best weapon against Russian power, and that was American oil and gas.
So we basically gave Putin more power and more money, and now we say, if you invade Ukraine, we're going to put sanctions on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
And-
what is your response as Putin saying,
Mm-hmm.
you just fill my pockets with billions of dollars?
And that's what Trump was saying when Trump was in office. He said that he confronted NATO about that because Trump was paying for the defense of NATO, or not Trump himself, but America. America was paying for the defense of NATO against Russia. Yet NATO, countries like Germany and France and stuff like that, they were paying Russia billions of dollars for oil and gas. So
it makes
you're
no
literally
sense.
Doesn't make any
paying
sense.
against their enemy when the victims per se are paying the enemy. Like that
to
doesn't
buy
make any
oil.
sense. yeah.
Exactly.
So with that being said, I guess kind of maybe three main questions that people have or we can address is Russian point of view, Ukrainian point of view, and American point of view. So from a Russian point of view, is Russian justified by taking over Ukraine?
I personally think so to a degree. Yeah.
Because I guess you already touched on that with the NATO.
It's a national security threat for Putin. Right. Therefore, that's why he did what he did.
So do you think Putin would have invaded if Ukraine would have said, no, okay, we're just going to back out of NATO and maintain peace with Russia?
I mean, I don't think he would have, but there's many people who said he would. But my question is, well, why didn't he do it years ago then, or something like that? Like why all of a sudden when Ukraine is like flirting with NATO, like I don't know, it just seems like that is the major reason why he did what he did.
Because one of the things I hear so much is people make it sound like Putin just all of a sudden woke up one day and it's like, you know what?
Let's invade.
I want Ukraine. I'm going to invade Ukraine. And from what I understand, and what is that really what happened? I mean, no, because it was NATO had a part of it, and he literally told them, if you guys are going to be part of NATO, which means they're going to be in alliance with America, which means American troops and American base can be literally right on my border, and I do not want that, because from a Russian point of view, he's Russia first. He wants Russia to be strong.
America would have done the exact same thing.
Which we did with the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, I think the same thing. I don't think Putin just decided to invade Ukraine because he could have done it many years ago. But I think it was because of the situation that happened and because he saw an opportunity in American leadership's weakness, like AKA Joe Biden. he saw like
and all his officials.
Yeah.
when like the pipelines closed here and there was a massive like a crisis with gas station. You remember that? It was earlier in his administration last year.
When somebody hacked into the thing?
The whole East Coast was like ran out of gas kind of and stuff. That I thought it was like Venezuela. I was like, dude, this is repeating. History is repeating. But the thing is that he just went to a meeting with Putin and he said, like, he just walked his hand and he didn't do anything. And Putin saw that weakness and he said, well, I'm dumb if I don't take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And more when a situation with NATO came up and then he's like, well, I have to do what I have to do. And he did it. But I think he wanted just a buffer state. He wanted a state like a neutral zone, which it was what Ukraine was. But Ukraine was flirting with the West, and Russia was like, I'm not taking it. Putin was like, I'm not taking it.
So what do you guys think Putin's plans are? Do you think he's going to take over Ukraine and militarize them and set up bases on the border of Ukraine and Poland and all the other European nations? Or what do you think he's going to do?
I mean, yeah, I hope he doesn't. I hope he just demilitarizes them and then leaves.
Because he came out and said that, right? That he just wants to demilitarize them?
He wants to demilitarize them, yeah.
That's his plan?
That was the goal, yeah. I hope that's what he does, and then he just leaves, the people alone. But even if he doesn't, again, I still think he's kind of justified in what he did because he warned us. He warned us. And we just were like, oh, let's just sanction him. He'll give up. He'll give in. He won't do it. We just kept poking, not listening to what he said.
The Russian bear.
That's right. And then so he's like, screw this. You have weak leadership. America has weak leadership. The West has weak leadership in Europe. I'm going to take advantage of it. And
most of NATO doesn't even pay their dues to NATO, or most of European countries that are in NATO don't even pay their dues to NATO.
Yeah, it's primarily America.
Something
now we
important that I have read also is that nobody knows Putin's real intentions and plans. You know,
It's a little bit vague.
so you can only speak from what it seems
Yeah.
to be the overall like structure of his thinking or what he wants to
Time
do.
will tell what happens.
Exactly, but what I think is that he didn't go against his word in the sense of, you said it, he warned the West. The West didn't listen. He went to invade. He never said, "Oh no, I'm gonna retract." He didn't say that. He said, "I'm gonna go full in if you guys don't listen to me. If you guys don't
The
fulfill my
fact
demands."
that he had almost 200,000 soldiers on the border, like last year, because it was just before the new year. Like, hello, that's the biggest warning sign you can give, is literally doing that. And they're like, oh, you know, he won't do it. You know, like, it's just
We're gonna put a couple sanctions.
yeah, sanction on it. It's like, no, he's
And
not
that's
messing around. This is for real. So this doesn't
Putin is a
surprise me.
leader.
This doesn't surprise me at all what
At
he
all.
did.
No.
I definitely saw this coming. But from a Ukrainian perspective, I definitely think there's two ways to look at it. Like, with the leadership, Ukrainian leadership, what was the best decision they should have made for their people? They should have said, you know what,
No
we're
to
not
NATO,
going to ask
probably.
for NATO membership. We're going to stay out of that. We're going to stay neutral. That, to me personally, I think that would have been the best decision they could have made for their people. But because of Ukraine and how corrupt it is with the U.S. government and many other governments as well, they didn't do that. And now they're reaping the consequences. And then if you look at it on the other side with the Ukrainian citizens, I think they have every right in the world to defend their nation against Russia.
Definitely.
So if they want to fight for their nation against Russia, that's their right. That's morally right, I think. So it's not just like, you know, Russia good, Ukraine bad. Like, there's many complexities behind
Factors,
it,
yeah.
and factors. So that's what I think with the Ukrainian.
And also,
When you mentioned, before you go, when you mentioned Ukraine wanting to join NATO, first of all, why do they want to join NATO? They've been independent for what, over 30 years or something? I'm pretty sure I heard Dennis Prager say. And they've grown economically. You know, yes, they are a corrupt government. I mean, the Clintons and the Bidens have all kinds of deals and partnerships and offices set up over there. I mean, we have proof of that. That's not just conspiracy theories. But they've had peace with Russia and they've had peace with the world. So why do they all of a sudden want to join NATO? I don't really understand that. So anyway, that was just a question I wanted to ask.
but something that I think is that, like Caleb was saying, Ukraine should have stayed neutral if they wanted like peace.
yeah.
Because not staying neutral was going to bring war upon them. And now that war is upon them, they cannot rely on international help to defeat Russia. It's like you got into this by yourself, by your own means. So you it's like, I'm not being cruel, I'm just being honest. Countries establish their sovereignty and they prove it by force, and they gain it by force. It's not like the U.S. just gained its sovereignty because somebody gave it to them. They fought for it.
They stole the natives' land. That's how we got it.
So they fought
That's not
against the
topic.
British for it, and even against the natives. So when you're to establish a nation, you need to use force, and you prove it. Like you prove, I am a nation by force. So this is the moment where Ukraine can prove to the rest of the world, oh, we are a strong nation, and we're going to stand up against Russia, and we're going to be independent. Or they cannot, and that's it.
I mean, they're the biggest army in Eastern Europe, right? But compared to Russia, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Russia's a pretty big army.
And so, because a lot of people want to say, oh, Russia just took over Crimea. What did you mention this morning about an article you read?
Well, I was reading how I was watching a video of Putin and how he was explaining that whole situation, and there's some articles written about it, that Ukraine, I think there's a vote in Crimea of like them wanting to be annexed by Russia, and they voted in favor of it. They wanted it.
Wow.
And so when
don't hear that,
Russia did it, then everyone's like, oh, you know, I think Barack Obama was like, we can't just redraw the lines of nations and stuff like that in the 21st century. But it's like, actually, you can do that because human nature is the same.
Yeah.
Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. war is going to continue until Jesus comes back. I mean, there's not set boundaries, and Nate, like that was ridiculous what he said. But yeah, I mean that's the mainstream media paints Russia and Putin like this like he's the real enemy, the real threat to the world and to freedom and to all this stuff. Mind you, Putin is not the as our friend would here say, he's not an angel.
Yeah.
Putin is a general, a war leader, a man of war. Like he's by no means an angel.
And he wants his country to be great and powerful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, though. It's like, what world leader is an angel? Like, what world leader doesn't have blood on their hands? The thing is this, though. If you look at Russia, if you look at Russia's values themselves, their values reflect a lot more biblically than our values here in the West today. The sexual perversion, there's none of that going on in Russia. I'm sure there is behind closed doors, but
it's not legal.
It's not culturally normal. It's not normal to do that stuff. It's not normalized or even promoted like it is here in the West.
Not even abortion.
Exactly, abortion, homosexuality.
And you want to talk about clean hands. Biden has more innocent blood on his hands with abortion. Than, a lot of blood that's on Putin's hands is probably more through war and stuff, and not just killing innocent lives.
But yeah, my whole point was this. I'm circling back because I went off a little tangent there. Putin and Russia, I don't think they are the main enemy of the West. It is China. China is the main enemy. The mainstream media wants to paint China as a competitor rather than an actual enemy. And then they paint Russia as an enemy instead of a competitor. When it should be the opposite. In reality, it should be the opposite. And so that's why I encourage listeners and viewers to do your own research. Read way more articles about Putin and about Russia and what, the other side of it, not just what the mainstream media is saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead. So, in line with what Caleb was sharing, U.S. should have taken Russia as an ally against China because China is the main enemy, and now Russia is going to cover itself under China's shadow because it's close to China, and China is a huge giant, and they need an ally, and the U.S. literally gave his back on Russia. So what's going to happen is that probably from being a neutral or a competitor, it's going to become an enemy because of the attitude of the West towards Russia, and because many people still see Russia as the Soviet Union and as the communist Stalinist regime, which is not today. And
a lot of people, even a lot of conservative people, a lot of well-intentioned people, still view Putin and Russia as a Soviet country, and they make their decision based off of that.
Exactly.
So what should the American response be? Because I know that's the huge debate right now going on. Should America intervene, or should they not? What do you guys think?
Well, I don't think they should. Militarily, at least, not. They can do sanctions if they want, but I don't think, militarily, I don't think they should invade or get their hands in that. And I think America should start to rebuild its energy production capacities, like oil and gas production, so they don't have to depend on Russia, neither in Iran. Because the other point is that now that Russia is going to be banned and Russian oil and gas is going to be banned, but they are right now sitting on the table with Iran to make a deal that could lift off sanctions from Iran. And guess where the world is going to turn to buy oil when they cannot buy it from Russia legally because there's sanctions and all this stuff? Well, they're going to turn to Iran. And then they're going to feed another monster in the Middle East that's going to grow, and it's going to just death to America chance,
Yeah.
For real.
I mean, to me, the whole, America should secure its own border before trying to secure the border of Ukraine.
Here.
It's it makes zero sense at all. We'll go to war over another person's border, like thousands of miles away across seas, but yet we can't secure our own border. It's like that makes zero sense to me. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
No, those are my main ones. Why don't we clear up and secure our border first before we worried about protecting somebody else's border? And at the same time, since when have become, even if we had our own secure border, since when have we become so good friends with Ukraine that we want to defend them against Russia? Like, you know, just like you said, we have China as an enemy. We need all the allies we can get. We need Russia as an ally.
Yeah.
And to your point with, you know, the Russian morals, okay, you know, they might not be a Christian or a perfect nation and necessarily have all the freedoms that the Ukrainian citizens have. But at the same time, if Russia comes in and takes over Ukraine, they're not going to just start persecuting and killing Christians like the Taliban do. And I think a lot of people have that mindset that when Russia comes in, it's just death to all the citizens, so the citizens got to get out of there. Yes, they have a right to defend themselves, but at the same time, it's not going to be the end of the world if they're under Russian rule. You know, they might not be able to evangelize as much as they can now, but I'm pretty sure they can still preach the gospel in the churches, from what I understand.
Within the churches,
Within
yeah,
the church. And
I also think, like, for Christians, that, like, even though I know there are churches in Ukraine and Russia, and we have to understand this, churches in Ukraine and Russia, even though all this is happening, they're brothers and sisters. And this, like, our union goes beyond what the kingdoms of this earth are. And 100, let's say if the Lord doesn't come 500 years from now, Russia may stop existing, Ukraine may stop existing, but the Church of Jesus Christ will still be on earth. So we have a much more higher, like, purpose and view of everything. And I also think that God's plans, like, I had a friend that texted me, I see war coming, I see fire coming from the east. And I'm like, yeah, but God is fulfilling his plan and his purpose for the earth. And this was not outside of God's agenda and somehow, there was a mistake, that this shouldn't have happened. No, God had it written in the book of human history, so we can be at ease because he's still seated on his throne, and we can trust in his plan.
That's right.
amen.
We are citizens of a kingdom that will never end. It will never crumble, unlike the kingdoms of the earth. So
Amen.
It will always increase. And one more last thought. Maybe this gives us some hope for the 2022 and 2024 elections. If Russia takes over Ukraine and we can't hack our elections from Ukraine. Just saying.
Unless Putin just uses Ukraine to then hack in our elections.
To hack in our election.
More so.
Yeah, because I in a way, I could see God using Putin to bring down judgment on the corruption in Ukraine. Because I've just heard there's so much bad stuff going on there with human trafficking, fraud.
The pedophilia thing's huge.
Oh, my goodness. And bioweapon plants and stuff. But all right. Well, there you have it. That's our view on the situation. We could talk a lot more about each situation, but due to time, we don't want to get into all of it. So anyway, I hope you do your own research. I hope this gives you guys some better understanding, I guess, of what's going on. And pray for the Christians. And keep up the good fight. Keep roaring the truth. Stay courageous.